Hey, fight fans, it's Michael Hernandez of the 10 Second Mark podcast, the only podcast that really brings you down to the true grit of MMA in the Central Coast. Now, here to discuss the top of the show, I am talking to you guys today about the 559 Fights 98 event that is going to be coming up on June 24th. Me and Charlie are going to be discussing a couple of key matchups that I have highlighted for it. And also, we are going to be talking to an MMA fighter that has fought for promotions such as Cage Warriors, Bellator, and Uriah Faber's A1 Combat. It's also been on Wakanda Savage's Instagram page, been on the It Can't Be That Bad pod. He is a man that has been all over in MMA and also in the world. So we are very excited to talk to Blake Perry, and we ended off with a little bit of discussion about the interview and just getting to talk about upcoming MMA events. So we hope you guys enjoy episode 3 of the 10 Second Mark podcast. Let's segue it over to the first round. You have somebody that's a local guy. Are you by chance going to be watching this? Are you going to be keeping an eye on Jared Man Bun Sutherland on June 24th?
Yeah, definitely. I've been meaning to get more into it for sure, and I know maybe some of our listeners are as well, so I'm just on the same track as them. Definitely want to check that out, especially knowing that we got the community ties here. I think that's what makes this it also special, is when, everybody's coming from the Central Coast. It's super fun to see that. To segue a little bit, I wanted to talk to you about the upcoming UFC 289 with we got Nunez coming off a win. Although it sucks that she's not fighting Pena. That's really disappointing, especially with the little beef they've got going on. I don't know if beef is the appropriate word, but they've got the whole build up for that. I wanted to see what your thoughts on that were.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird dynamic that they have going on. I say it's like a one-sided beef with some of these superstars that don't speak as much in the media. And Juliana Pena is definitely somebody that's very popular in media. She's built her back off of being very skillful on the mic and being able to back it up in the octagon as well. And she was able to defeat Pena in that first ever matchup for the women's bantamweight championship that they had. And then in the second one, Nunez got the best of her. And then obviously we were really looking forward to this one, UFC 289. But sadly, Pena had to drop out due to that rib injury. But I feel like Nunez just doesn't really hold any beefs. Like, even with the Cyborg incident back a couple years ago, I just feel that she doesn't fight anybody with the malicious intent of going out there to kill them, or like, oh yeah, I dislike this person. So I feel like for Pena, it's very one-sided. Pena has a lot of things that she doesn't like. She feels like she has to promote the fight and do a lot of more things than Nunez has to do. So I feel that's fair, because Nunez definitely doesn't go in the media as much. But at the same time, Nunez is that dominant of a fighter to where in the women's division, I feel she doesn't have to go in. She doesn't have to go in the media. She doesn't have to go and do interviews, because so many people already know her name, and maybe it would be a little bit of a better idea to spread her name out there. But yeah, that will definitely be a very interesting matchup, especially with Charles Oliveira coming back after his last fight against Islam Makhachev, losing the lightweight championship. He's coming against Beneil Dariush, who has had a stellar UFC run. I believe he's almost at 10 straight wins now, which is absolutely insane. His last fight was at UFC 284, I believe, against Matsut Gamrot, and he got that unanimous decision victory. But Beneil Dariush will definitely be a hard matchup for him, because he's got that strong wrestling pedigree, and we all know Oliveira against wrestlers, it was a struggle against Makhachev on the ground to utilize that jiu-jitsu that he's well known for. So he's going to have to duel it out on the feet with Dariush, and Dariush was dropping Gamrot a couple of times. So I'm very interested to see how that all plays out. And just to segue a little bit back to 559 Fights 98, because there was actually a couple of more matchups on there that I had wanted to touch up a little bit before we had to head up into the second round with Blake Perry, the Nature Boy. Very excited for you guys all to hear that exchange between me and him. But Abraham Del Toro is making his comeback at the 559 fights, coming back to the Valley Strong ballpark. That's where his last fight was, and he's going to be fighting off against Saifullah Dashkalov from the famous Team Alpha Male. So what are your thoughts as someone that hasn't gone to the 559 fights with these big gyms that have, these ties to Sacramento and Uriah Faber, and, being able to go out to the 559 fights and have these great competitions? I mean, they're damn near the main event. So is this another fight you're going to be looking at, or are you really not too much into the wrestling? Because I know that's something that you kind of have been a little, ipso facto on.
Well, I will say that it definitely is super intimidating getting into a sport like MMA when you don't really know what's going on. Like, sure, I could probably comment on somebody striking to a certain degree, but I'm not a genius, just like most people aren't. I did look into that a little bit. It's really cool that Saifullah used to corner for Bellator, which I think that's dope. Cornering is not something that's easy to do. I don't think he was a cut man, but I think it's just crazy that the sport has cut men in general. Like, that's just insane to me. Back to the just getting into a sport like MMA and going to these events like this, I cannot overstate like how cool it is that the Central Coast has a community like it does. Because I was speaking as somebody from Seattle, like the gym ties are crazy. Obviously, I remember the fight I went to in Portland. There you had like little kids that were part of gyms, and like you'd have people with their picture on their face, which is it's crazy. Just like, and then the little kids would just go out there and just like smack the shit out of each other, which was pretty crazy to watch. But yeah, just those gym ties do go crazy, and I'm sure that's something you've seen a lot.
Yeah, no, the gym ties in MMA have definitely make a huge impact. I feel like D-Throne is the base gym for 559 fights, and they have definitely got a whole lot of huge exposure. Most recently, they had one of their guys, Big Bad Lewis. He's their heavyweight fighter, and he was able to get a victory at the Cage Warriors promotion, which is a promotion that has, as we were talking to Blake Perry about it, and this is kind of to tease a little bit into what we were discussing during our interview. But Cage Warriors is a very successful promotion, very big in the European countries, but it has like skyrocketed the careers of Conor McGregor and most recently Paddy Pimblett, and of course a lot of guys that have gone into the UFC from Europe have most likely fought in Cage Warriors at some point, and now they're starting to make a little bit of more of an impact, especially in the United States. So it's definitely pretty awesome to see that we are having guys from even, I know it's not the Central Coast, but the Central Valley. It's only 2 hours away, somewhere. Somehow people look at Santa Barbara, and I always find that funny. It's the Central Coast, even though it's 2 hours away from us. Santa Barbara is still considered the Central Coast to San Luis Obispo, but a lot of people forget about that Central Valley, man, and they are producing killers over there. So I just wanted to give a shout out to D-Throne, but they have also another fighter on the 559 fights 98 card that's going to be looking to make an impact, Joshua Simpson, who he had a fight against a guy that was on 90 Day Fiance, Binyam Chibre. That was probably one of the most exhilarating fights and build-ups that I've seen to a amateur fight ever. It was absolutely insane, the amount of uproar, the crowd noise. I believe if you go on that video online, there's probably tens of thousands of views. And it unfortunately doesn't go the way that Simpson wanted. He went for a handshake, and right as he went for a handshake, up kick kind of just went straight to his chin, and it was a quick knockout. But the way that he was able to build off of that and kind of just learn is something that I'm very excited to show and talk about when we have our interview, because I'm going to be coming out with an interview in these upcoming weeks on my YouTube channel with him, and I'm really excited for people to see this young man's mindset, the way that he was able to push through that. And he's going to be fighting against JJ Madrid, who he's been on a little bit of a layoff. He hasn't fought since 2015 in MMA. He's, he fought on 559 fights too, way back in the day. That was one of his first ever AMI fights and now he's gonna be fighting at 559 fights 98 against Josh Simpson. So definitely a very interesting kind of storyline to go to pair with that. Yeah, it's very cool to see these Central Valley guys, Central Coast guys getting these opportunities and Cage Warriors and all of that. But also another interesting kind of tidbit was Cody Gibson was on The Ultimate Fighter. His first episode, he got a little bit of camera action on there, and that was pretty cool to see somebody that I got to roll on the mats with and train with personally be on a show with Dana White, be shaking hands with Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor. It was pretty cool, man. So I'm very just wanted to give a huge shout out to Cody Gibson. And also, if you guys have not got the chance to check out that interview with me and him and check out that article, it was great getting to talk to him and kind of see his experience and see his light from such a big opportunity, because that's a chance to make millions of dollars right there, and to be in the presence of McGregor, somebody that's been able to get those big bucks in the fighting world. It's got to be enormous and it's got to be pretty crazy to be in the presence of that, especially Michael Chandler as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I think we're gonna segue into your interview right about now.
Michael Hernandez of MLH Media and Valley Fight News, and I'm here today with my guy Blake Perry, the Nature Boy. You know, I'm super excited to get to talk to this guy. Every single time I've gotten to see this guy, I've gotten to hear from him. It's always been great vibes. So Blake, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great, bro. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm stoked to be on.
Yeah, no, it was definitely awesome seeing you at the last Uriah Faber event. You kind of shocked me. I was like going to the restroom, and then I was like, yeah, I heard Michael, and I was like, I thought somebody was talking to their kid.
Oh,
And I see you come up to me with the Terrence Saturn Kill Bill
yeah,
style shirt on. Shout out
yeah,
to
yeah,
Terrence.
yeah.
You,
You
you
already
fought that
know.
night. Oh, there you are. There you go. That same exact shirt, actually.
Yep.
And then we got to talking about possibly hopping on, and obviously now we're to that stage. But I just wanted to get to talking about your last fight against Josh Nakagawa at Cage Warriors in March. It was a pretty interesting event. You had Patty Pimblett commentating for the event. You had obviously you on the card. So take us through going through an elite MMA organization like that, somebody that's brought up stars like Conor McGregor, Patty Pimblett, all kinds of guys, and now obviously you got to fight in that promotion. So tell us how it was getting to fight in that promotion compared to maybe a lot of the other backyard promotions or other MMA
Yeah.
promotions you got to fight in before.
Yeah, man. Cage Warriors was awesome. Honestly, it was as big of an event as I've been on. Yeah, the guys were all great, and it was cool too, kind of seeing a different side of it. Like because they're super big internationally, bigger in Europe even than they are in the States. So it was cool getting to meet a whole different network of people and kind of maybe try and make a name over there would be cool. But yeah, it was definitely it was cool, man, seeing like people that I was fans of as kids, like Chris Lieben was there, like working, and because he refs and judges and does all that, and I grew up watching him, and then obviously seeing Patty Pimblett was cool, and yeah, they got all kinds of cool people. I seen at their show last night they had like Steve-O commentating, and
Yeah.
Thug Rose was there, Jalen Hill, so it was a cool event for sure.
Yeah, Cage Warriors always seems to put on an amazing show whenever they come to the United States. It always seems to have the I'm gonna probably say this wrong. The Suisun, the
Yep.
San Diego, that
Yep.
resort, but it's a really nice spot for those MMA events. And just getting to talk a little bit about your fight, it was kind of a back and forth grappling affair. A lot of up against the cage. But I
Mhm.
noticed at one point during the fight, it was a little bit of a funny note. Your opponent's short started to kind of rip. Did you by chance notice that, or were you
No,
were you just
I
so in the
didn't.
moment you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to get to the end of this third round? Because it was at
Yeah,
the third round, very crucial. Both you guys, I would probably say it was very close at that point. So
yeah.
did you see that in the moment, or were you like, oh my gosh, like what the hell is happening? Because his shorts just kind of
No.
started peeling back.
No, I didn't notice in the moment. I know it's funny. I noticed later, like rewatching the fight and stuff. He might have noticed at the time, but no, I didn't. Maybe, yeah, maybe if I was a little more fresh in the first round, I might have noticed. But towards that end of the third round, you're just trying to grind it out and get through it. But no, that's actually really funny. No, I didn't notice at the time.
Yeah, I was curious. I was like, I wonder if like, because I seen you kind of going too when you he kind of had you in a takedown position
Uh-huh.
against the wall, and I seen you kind of going for the shorts. I'm like, is this guy Blake really pulling at this man's shorts? But
No,
you know,
I
got to do what you
swear.
got to do for that third round. You know what I'm saying? But a little bit of
Hands in them.
a little bit of a funny tidbit or an interesting tidbit about your first fight. It was for Bellator against
Hmm.
Makoa Cooper. And
Hmm.
a little bit of an interesting background about this event was that you fought Makoa's brother Blake Cooper in the amateur level. And obviously,
Hmm.
the first time around against Blake, it was a little bit tough. You had the knockout in the first round. And
Yeah.
you know, how was it going into that fight with your first pro fight at a major organization? You know, you got Scott Coker. He's obviously
Yeah.
led a huge MMA organizations in the past. How was it to go against that guy's brother? Because that wrestling line with the Cooper brothers definitely has transferred down. And you were able to get a submission, that anaconda choke against him, which was one of the most highlighted MMA highlights of the year. I mean, every promotion I felt, every single like MMA insider was talking about that fight. So take us through that when you got the call and you got said, "Hey, we want you to fight Makoa Cooper."
Yeah, man, it was fucking awesome. I couldn't, I was trying really hard to get on that event, especially in Hawaii and stuff. And I honestly thought it was kind of a long shot, getting on it, but I was trying, and I kind of didn't think it was gonna happen. And then yeah, their like matchmakers ended up calling my coach, and it was like, hey, would you want the Cooper fight? I was like, oh fuck yeah, and then obviously, like you said, the backstory, getting knocked out, shit, dude, the first fucking 10 seconds with his brother in 20, I don't know if it's 2018, 2019, but 4 years ago around there. But yeah, man, it was dope, dude. The whole, that's so different from anything I've done promotional wise, because all my amateur fights up to that point had been, normal amateur events, some like pro am, but going from that to, Bellator's 2 day event in Hawaii was like, it was awesome, like thinking that, I'm on the card and I'm like starstruck too. You know what I mean? Like I'm there with like Cyborg and, all these people are fighting. And I'm like, damn, I'm on this card. This kind of cool. But no, it was cool, man. It was crazy, crazy fight for sure.
Was there a moment to you after the fight, you getting this recognition, obviously being in a state that means a lot to you in Hawaii,
Hmm.
and the way your whole admin career even went down? You had been 0-2 or 0-3 at one point, and then you
Hmm.
gotten 3 or 4 straight wins going
Hmm.
into this venture,
Hmm.
and a lot of people were doubting you going into the fight. What were the emotions going through the Nature Boy at that moment?
Yeah, man, right after was definitely, and I know everyone says it like, oh, I really didn't place too much on the odds or whatever going into it, but I feel like you kind of can't, you know what I mean? Like you just got to take it as any other fight, and it was, same with him. It wasn't like, he was some 10-time Bellator vet. He was, he had one pro fight going into that. So we're both newer guys on the scene in terms of pro careers, So it was just a big stage for both of us, man. But right after, it was pretty, it was crazy, man, because the fight ended and it almost doesn't really hit you until later,
Yeah.
um I think I would say the highlight of my day that day was after Hoist Gracie came in the locker room and gave me a fist pound. It was like, nice submission. I was like, damn, that's all I needed. I
Oh,
could, yeah, I was like, I can quit now. That's all I know.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Hey,
cool.
I think we need a belt somewhere in that Perry household before, you know, from a pro organization before we can get any quitting or retiring talks out of you, my
All
guy. But
right.
a Gracie shout out, especially from Royce, is definitely that's on the right track, my man. And
That
an
was cool.
anaconda
Yeah.
choke. It was one of the nicest chokes I've ever seen, especially the way you came back and you were fighting throughout that. And just a little bit about your fighting style for the fans that haven't got the chance to watch you. You love to brawl, but you also got that strength in your wrestling background. Would you say that that comes from a background of wrestling? Did you maybe used to wrestle as you were growing up, or has it happened with your team over at Nobody MMA? I know you guys have a ton of people over there. You guys got Terrence that we were talking about earlier, and then you got Houston Schleibeck, the new young up and comer that just
Yes.
won the state title for the 135ers. So take us through it. Has it been really a journey of your grappling, or has it kind of always been something that you have had, and the striking has been something that you have learned to grow with?
That's a really good question. So I did grow up wrestling. Like I pretty much wrestled, most of my life. But I mean, to be brutally honest, I wasn't that great at wrestling. I was always like, like a solid guy on the team, but I was never a standout, and so nothing special. So I would say majority of the wrestling grappling style you see in my fights, that's just stuff I picked up from our gym, and like post wrestling career, that was all stuff I learned in fighting at between United MMA in Hawaii and then, Team Nobody out here. It's just stuff I picked up there because really my style, yeah, it's like a lot of like submissions, and it's like just kind of a mixture of wrestling and jiu-jitsu kind of thing on the ground. And I don't have that traditional wrestler, like, a lot of guys just blast double and then ground and pound from the top. I don't really do, that's, I wouldn't say that's like my strongest point, so I really can't accredit growing up wrestling too much for my style, but it's definitely nice that I had that base for sure, for sure.
Yeah, that wrestling background definitely comes into play in a lot of your fights, especially when you're on the ground, because it seems you're very comfortable. You're not like a fish flopping out of water, how a lot of other guys seem to be whenever they're doing their grappling exchanges. You seem to be very comfortable. And even when it comes down to going against the cage and with those exchanges, you seem very much in control most of the time, but
Yeah,
just to talk a
I
little
appreciate
bit.
that.
Yeah, no, of course. It's always a pleasure to get to watch any of your fights, but just to talk a little bit about how you got into MMA, because I feel like it takes obviously a long road to get to where you have gotten now. And you were just discussing about how you were training out of United MMA in Hawaii. We were just discussing earlier about how you grew up in Ohio. So take us
Hmm.
through how you've gone from Ohio to Hawaii to now over here in, I believe, Vacaville, California, correct?
Yep. Yeah, man, I kind of bounced around. It's funny. So I grew up wrestling in Ohio, right? And then I started training like little bits of Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu out there. But I started to really take my MMA career seriously in Hawaii. And the reason I actually ended up in all these spots, across the country and partially world with Hawaii, was I'm in the military, and they would station me at different spots. So that was how I, randomly ended up in Hawaii and then here in California too. But yeah, no, I, got my base in Ohio in terms of wrestling and started messing around with striking. Nothing super extreme. But then once I got to Hawaii is when I really like, picked a team and bunkered down and set goals and got a bunch of amateur fights and stuff out there. And then fast forward a few years in California, I'd been living in California by the time I made my pro debut, even though it was in Hawaii. I just went back for my pro debut, but I had already been training in California for about a year and a half.
Yeah. So that's absolutely a crazy journey. I had no idea even that you were in the military. So how was that military journey? Going through all these different spots. What, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah, yeah,
what type of services were you in? Give
yeah,
me the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
gist. Give me the
Of
breakdown.
course. So I'm actually still I'm active duty Air Force. And yeah, stationed out here at Travis Air Force Base. It's in Fairfield, California, right out near where I'm staying, like the Bay Area. But yeah, man, I joined in 2017. I grew up in Ohio, and then I joined in Cleveland, Ohio in 2017, and then they sent me off to Hawaii, and I was there for a little over 3 years, and then they sent me here, and I've been here a little over 2 years. So I've been in for about 6 years. I have about a year left, and I'm gonna get out. But no, it's in all honesty, it's been a blessing in terms of one, because I never would have just randomly moved to Hawaii or Cal, you know what I mean? I probably would have stayed right where I was at, like most people. But I was fortunate that you can travel with no money in the military. You got no choice. So that's the nice thing. It don't cost me anything because I would never be able to just travel. You know, so it's been in a weird way kind of a blessing for my fight career because for a few reasons. The traveling options, I'm always getting to cross train and travel and just get lots of really good work. But then also financially too, because it's nice uh having a steady paycheck, so I can take the fights that I want and really bunker down and focus without having to, worry where my next meal's coming and taking fights that I don't necessarily want just so I can get a quick paycheck. You know what I mean? I don't have to make my career about money, my fight career about money. I can make it about being the best fighter I can be. And I think in the long run, that's going to help me make more money. So, yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, all the promotions you have fought for have a great repertoire in the MMA scene, especially for the regional area. I mean, obviously Bellator is damn near the UFC in terms of popularity and
Sure.
people knowing, oh yes, you professional MMA, UFC, Bellator, yada yada yada. But you have
Yeah.
also fought for Uriah Faber's A1 Combat as well as Cage Warriors. So take us through that fight. You had that fight against McMahon, I believe, and that was a crazy fight. I mean, obviously, you're still kind of with the repercussions of that a little bit with the nose area,
Yeah.
but take us through that in that fight. Did you know that nose was compromised at some point, or were you just like, maybe it's just a stinger? Or take us through it, because
Yeah.
that's
No.
absolutely insane to me. Sorry, it's just always I'm watching it back, even doing the studying for this video. It was absolutely insane to me that you were even able to breathe after that. So
Yeah.
take us
Fuck,
through
man.
that, man. Take us through it.
So, no, man, when it happened, I know it sounds like bullshit, like, oh, you don't feel it that much, but in all honesty, man, you really don't feel a whole lot, like physically, until right after, and then it kicks in. But I mean, it definitely felt like I got hit in the face with something, but I didn't realize because we fought for like another minute before the round ended, and then we were in some scrambles, and I, honest to God, didn't realize it. Like, it was that bad, and then by the time I sat down and like, clearly breathing through my nose wasn't a thing, I was like, oh fuck. And then just the way my coach was talking to me, he was very, real calm, cool, and collected, but he's like, hey, you got to go out and finish this like now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a good chance it's gonna get stopped if you like go out and empty the tank right now. You know what I mean? Because like don't let it be a doctor stoppage. And then obviously, sure enough, before the second round started, they stopped it anyway. But yeah, man, that was a crazy fight, and that is true, dude. That promotion's fucking dope, man. A1 Combat, I really really like those guys. And they're getting real big too, traveling all around. And yeah, we were out in that fight near you in Central California, and uh, yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you were saying, "Oh, the traveling, I'm getting to accept fights that I really get to like." I'm not just accepting fights for any other promotion.
Yeah.
Looking at your record, man, you can definitely tell. I mean, Bellator, Cage Warriors, Uriah Faber's A1 Combat, those are all organizations that have some sort of ties to either a major organization or they are that major organization. So that's just kudos to you, man, for knowing to pick your spots. But I feel like a big part of that has been your social media following, because I feel you have one of the fondest social media followings that a lot of other regional fighters maybe don't experience. Even guys that are on Ultimate Fighter, guys that are on super big promotions such as Cage Warriors, such as Bellator, you probably have, if not more followers than just about as much. So take us through how your kind of social following has built into your MMA career, and what do you contribute your success to? Has it been your ability to go on these like podcasts? I mean, I seen your video with Wakanda Savage. I seen your recent podcast with the It Can't Be That Bad, I believe, correct?
Yep. Yep.
So take us through it. Has it been what exactly has been your your formula to success?
Oh, I appreciate that, man. But no, I mean, in terms of getting into these major organizations, that's completely my coach, man. Because, if it wasn't for him, I'd be fighting at any, I mean, just like anybody, I'd be fighting at the little local spots too, because I would never know who to get in contact with, and you know, Bellator or Cage Warriors or Uriah Faber. I mean, I would never be able to get in contact with those guys. So he's got he's been in the game a long time, and yeah, Anthony Sonny Ramos, he's the one, him, and same with Terrence, gets on these cards. Sonny just has made good relationships over the years, and he believes in our skills enough to get us that foot in, and then we can do what we do, and then make a name for ourselves from that point on. Um, and in terms of the social media, it's like that's like such a tool nowadays. You know what I mean? Like anymore, I guess kind of the way I look at it is like if I put hours and hours and hours into training every week, and hours into my nutrition, and hours into my recovery and film study, yada yada yada, right? Why do all that and then just to have no one know who I am and no one know that I'm fighting? You know what I mean? If I do all that work, why not take fucking 30 minutes while I'm watching TV and mess around on my phone and promote something? You know what I mean? Something that like honestly requires next to no effort. You know what I mean? Like while I'll sit and be watching Netflix, and I'll make some stupid post on Instagram or something, that'll drum up some interest or something like that. And it's helped a lot. And in terms of my following, I think a big part of that is, dude, a lot of it's just I have really good friends. Like I mean, I follow a lot of people back too. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I have a lot of followers and I don't follow anybody. I don't even know. I might follow more people than follow me. I don't even know, to be honest. But I think that adds to it too. When you're just kind of like just be a real person and be personable. I think so many people get wrapped up into like looking cool on social media that they kind of turn into assholes. And you know what I mean? Like they'll get
Yeah.
follow from some like amateur fighter or something will follow them, and they're like, oh, I'm too cool. You know what I mean? They don't even give it a second thought. Whereas I'll follow them back. You know what I mean? I'm more concerned with drumming up interest and getting my own following and people watching my fights and me achieving my goals. I'm more concerned with that than trying to, impress some fucking 12-year-olds on Instagram with my cool follow ratio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I just like talking to cool people. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm happy we met that way. And I think that's cool. I like following interesting people too. If you got cool things like yourself going on in your life, I want to follow that. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a mutual thing. I have people that are cool to me, following me, but I also like to give it back and see what they're doing too. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
it definitely gives back to you. I've seen so many people comment on your posts, interact with your stuff, like how you were saying earlier, just even off of things that may, like how you were saying, seem so little, but to fans, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's actually trying to connect with me. This guy's trying to contact with me. This guy's trying to talk to me, and that means a lot to a lot of MMA fans, especially when you got guys like Conor McGregor or guys that like Brock Lesnar, who have most of the time never respond to their fans or have
sure.
never don't even read their fans things, and that's obviously they have millions and millions of
Yeah,
responses,
sure,
but
sure.
it still means a lot when somebody like you, who's been through the ringer and been through a lot of these MMA fights. It's pretty cool to get a response, and it was definitely pretty awesome when you came up to me and you knew who I
Yeah,
was. So
yeah.
I will definitely give you that kudos, man. You have that people connection skill down to plant.
Well,
But
I appreciate that.
I really appreciate your time today, Blake. You've been an awesome guest, and I really appreciate you being so open with the questions and you just unraveling everything for us and really kind of laying us into your MMA career. But now a little bit, I just wanted to ask you some personal stuff, a little bit more
Sure.
into the personal side. I heard that you had a nephew by the name of Adonis, named after the Creed movie.
Yes,
And
yes,
I know you said you're in the military service, but
yes.
I was just thinking, if you did have a kid, would you
Uh-huh.
try and name it after somebody that was in the fight game? I've known some people name their kids Tyson over like Mike Tyson, or
Yeah.
something like Muhammad because Muhammad Ali, obviously. Has there ever been a
Dang.
thought to you where you're like, that like this name to me, it sticks
Yeah.
out?
Damn, that is such a good question. Man, that's a really good. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. That's. I feel like most girls usually have that shit down. Like from the time they're like little kids. Like I feel like girls are like on top of that stuff, right? But I guess I don't know. That's a really good question, man. Like there's definitely names that are like fighter names. You know what I mean? Even if it's not like after a fighter. You know how you just hear someone's name? Like I have a homie in Hawaii. His name's Kervon Battle. I'm like, you just know that kid's gonna be a fighter from the time he's like 3. You
Yeah.
know? Um, but man, that's a good question. I'd have to put some thought into it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a little Terrence Perry. I'll name him.
Hey, Terrence
Nah.
is a pretty solid name. Terrence Crawford. I mean,
Hey,
you could
it's
you could
true. It's
always say
hey,
that. You could be like, hey,
yeah.
hey, I like Terrence Crawford. I like my boy Terrence.
There we go.
We fought with my boy Terrence. Wrong turn.
There
Uh,
we
I
go.
always I
Terrence
always liked
Perry.
his I always
We
liked
call
his
him
nickname
TP for
too.
short.
TP. We need to make some new shirts with that. But
There we
for
go.
you, Blake, when is the next time you're hopping into the cage, my guy? When I seen you last fought in March, but I know you like to take a little bit of a break, and it makes sense, with that military. I know you probably want to take your time in between fights, but when is the next time you're looking to hop up in the cage, man?
Damn, dude, I've been trying, man. I've been hitting up back and forth with a few promotions, and we're just kind of working out details. But it should be end of summer, early fall, like between August and October. I'll definitely be in there somewhere.
Dude, that's awesome. I can't wait till the next time you get to hop in the cage, man. And hopefully it's near a promotion near me. If
Hell
not,
yeah,
then you already know I'm gonna be watching on TV. But if it's a promotion near me, I'm gonna try and get myself some tickets, man, because it's always great seeing guys that I know get to hop up in that cage and get themselves that great exposure. But just these last couple of questions just to round it out.
yeah,
Was there anybody that you wanted to thank? Because I know that you have a ton of people that you've trained with in the past, like how we were explaining earlier. You have Nobody MMA, you have your people over in Hawaii, you have obviously family back in Ohio. So
yeah.
just was there anybody you wanted to shout out? Any sponsors? Anybody?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, I got to shout out to Team Nobody in California, Train for Life Center in Suisun City, ran by Sonny Ramos. Awesome place. Anybody in the Bay Area, definitely should check it out. Outside of that, I have two buddies fighting this month on my team. We have Julian Prado and Amini Kapapa are both fighting for SF Combat, San Francisco Combat. Um, so I want to shout out those guys. Yeah, outside of that, man, just friends and family. Shout out to, like you already said, man, all my buddies back in Ohio, all my teammates and training partners and friends in Hawaii, and then here, and then shout out to you too, man, for having me. I appreciate that.
Hey man, it was all the pleasure. The fact that you even knew me at that event was pretty awesome. It was like, wow, I got guys that really follow my
Hell yeah,
career.
dude, getting up there,
And
bro.
hey, so I appreciate you coming on the
Yeah.
show, giving and selecting that time for me today, got my guy. But I'm just about ran out of questions for you, man. You've ran through the Michael Hernandez carousel, but
Hey, all right.
I
I'm
appreciate your
honored.
time today, man,
Of
because it
course,
was an
bro.
absolute honor. And obviously Zoom likes to limit our time on here as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here. It's going to be Michael Hernandez of MLH Media and Valley Fight News. And I am signing out with the guy himself, Blake, the Nature Boy Perry.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Michael, that was a really good interview. These guys you keep finding, they just seem like stand-up dudes.
Yeah, a lot of these dudes there, I tell people, these MMA guys, they have a great background of character. I feel being punched in the face and being thrown on the ground a lot your whole entire life, or training to do that, it definitely can build the character in you and makes you not be such a dick. And Blake was definitely one of those guys, man. One of the nicest MMA fighters I've ever got to meet. I've touched on in the interview that we were, obviously we had met at the Uriah Faber's A1 Combat I think it was 9, I believe, and he was so nice. Like we just chatted it up in line while I was heading to the bathroom, because there was a line for the bathroom over there in that event. It was kind of crazy. That line for the bathroom was damn near about as long as the line was to the concession stand. So it seemed like like you go to the concession stand and then you need to go to the bathroom, right? But it's like both those lines are equating out. But on I go. It was pretty cool just getting to talk to Blake there. Obviously, he was in the corner for his guy Terrence Saturn, but like, it's crazy, man. He's definitely going up there in MMA circles, and I'm really excited to see how the rest of his career trajectory goes. Especially because we were talking about he's fought for huge promotions, Cage Warriors, Bellator in his first ever pro fight. It's absolutely like a that's astonishing to even get on the undercard, and the fact that he was on a card in Hawaii, which that makes it even that more prevalent. And even Uriah Faber's A1 Combat, they have a contract with UFC Fight Pass, so they're broadcasted on ESPN Plus and ESPN. So definitely Blake Perry's getting his name out there, man. But it's pretty cool too because he has that social media following.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Sorry if I cut you off there, but I think that social media for fighters can be such an important thing, especially when you're like just getting into the pros, because that's what gets people talking about you. And if people are talking about you, they want to see you fight. And promoters obviously pick up on that, like sharks pick up on blood in the water. So, because they're just trying to make money off these fighters. And I know to throw it back to the interview with JJ, he also has like a huge social media presence. I think he's got like 17K on Instagram, verified type guy. And I know that in of itself can take a ton of work. Just the media presence takes all kinds of different skill sets that have absolutely nothing to do with fighting, but that just shows how dedicated these guys are to making it work. Like, they decided that this is what they're going to do. They're going to fight to live, and then they're going to live to fight, and they're not going to let something like Instagram stand in their way of doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see those guys still use that Instagram as an advantage, like how you were saying, to build themselves up. And it really does go a long way, because building your name and showing that you're active in the community and that you don't just go to fights and fight and leave the building. You're actually going to other people's fights, or you're in the corner for teammates. And I feel like that's a big, huge component too, is being in the corner for guys and showing that support for a lot of your guys. And even in the interview when me and Blake talked, he shouted out some of his amateur guys. I believe Amini Kapapa and another one of the gentlemen coming out of Nobody MMA in Victorville, and he shouted them out for their upcoming bout on June 24th for SF Combat. So it's things like that though that really go a long way, because people are hearing those comments. People are always listening, and you being on the right side, it's like being on the right side of history in a sense. You always want to show love, and I feel love will be reciprocated back to you. And social media, it's the proof in the pudding in a sense. And sometimes there's going to be people that are able to break that model, but a lot of the times, a lot of these guys that have that great social media following, if it's because they're that great of people, or it's because they're that great at their job. And it's obviously pretty cool to see JJ doing his thing in the boxing world, and then Blake doing his thing in the MMA world. Blake's been all over, been on ESPN with his famous nose break. Like, the fact that he was able to want to go into that second round is so astonishing.
Yeah, that nose break was vile. Show me that video, and oh my gosh, that just shows how, like, it takes some guts to get in there. I would not want that to happen to me, man.
Yeah, it was hard to watch the first time around. And I met the cut woman for that, Carol Syracusa. She's an awesome lady. I always love seeing her at any of the fights that I get to attend. But she told me that was probably one of the worst nose breaks she's ever seen. She goes up and down the state of California from, she'll go to LA, she'll go to all over the San Francisco area, Central Valley. And she says that that's one of the worst that she's ever seen. So for me, if a cut woman that's been in MMA promotions and boxing promotions all over California is saying that that cut is one of the worst she's ever seen, I'm going to believe her. And it's pretty cool too, because he's gained his recognition. He even got some a video with Wakanda Savage on Instagram, famous Instagram personality, and he got a comment from Mike Perry, kind of shouting out that they're both from that Perry last name, and obviously Mike Perry is known for his toughness as well. So definitely pretty cool for Blake that he's getting his flowers now, and I can't wait for the next time he gets to hop in that ring, man, because it's going to be a great opportunity for him, promoting his name, and then obviously getting to showcase his skills in the octagon.
Yeah, and just one more thing I wanted to touch on, and then another throwback to another episode, the episode with Joe. These guys just seem to come from the service a lot, and I think that's just something that's super cool. I have a friend that's going to the Marines, and I know that it takes a certain kind of toughness to even want to do it in the first place, and then obviously these guys are the toughest of the tough. So what are your thoughts on that?
Military builds character, man. It's it's a hell of a ride to be in there, you know, and a lot of people, they don't maybe agree with the things that the military does, or, you know, but you can't deny that the men that it builds or the women that it builds a lot of character. I feel that the military has built a lot of great MMA athletes as well. I mean, Randy Couture is one of the first ever great MMA champions, and he was a vet, and he came into the UFC, I believe, at damn near the age of 30. He was a champion at 40, and there's a lot of vets in the MMA, and it's great because they definitely have that respect aspect down that a lot of mixed martial artists, especially that are coming in from these newer generations, don't have. And it's very cool to see this. It's almost a sort of old school-esque sort of thinking with the military ideologies coming in, but it's definitely pretty cool because they're hard workers, man. And both of those gentlemen are some of the nicest men I've ever met. So I'm very blessed to say that I've ever got to sit down with them, and I can't wait to see the rest of their careers. And I'm hoping that Joe gets to fight on upcoming card, man, because I know he was dealing with a little bit of an injury after his most recent fight against Dorian Hale at 559 Fights 97 with his teeth. His teeth were coming a little bit loose on top there. So prayers up for Joe. But yeah, I'm really excited for both those men's careers, man, because they're dogs and they're even greater people.
All right. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of our third episode of the 10-second mark. Once again, we wanted to shout out our Instagram, which is the 10-second mark, and our Twitter, which is 1010 second mark. We just kind of got those up and running, so it'd mean a lot to us if you went out and engaged with those. And thanks again for listening, and this has been the 10-second mark.
Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to follow me and Charlie on both of our socials as well. mlhmedia.mma on Instagram for Michael, and charlie.nichols1 on Instagram for Charlie. Make sure to follow both of us for both of our ventures in and outside of the octagon. Thank you guys for listening.